Hello, this is Dave from Team Huldra Arms and Mills Fleet Farm. Today we're doing an informative video, kind of meant to be an owner's manual video, as well as an informative video about our Huldra Mark IV platform of rifles and upper receivers. This video is designed for the person who may be new to the platform, may have just purchased a Huldra product and has questions about it, or for someone who just has general questions about maintenance, disassembly, lubrication, operation, and function. We hope you find this video informative and can use it as a resource in case you have questions in the future. Before we get started, we want to make sure safety is number one. Our workspace is clear of any ammunition, and there is no ammunition in the firearm. To clear the firearm before we do any work is the first step. For this, we will just remove it from our vise block. It is obvious there is no magazine, but that would be the first step, is removing any magazine from the magazine well. You can do this by depressing the magazine release button right here. Once the magazine is removed, we can then operate the charging handle, which is right here. The charging handle will manually cycle the firearm. By pulling back, we can feel the spring tension of the recoil spring assembly, and when we operate the charging handle, we can see the bolt carrier assembly moving back and forth. This is what we want to do to verify that the firearm is empty. What we will do is we will pull back on the charging handle, and at the same time we will press the bolt catch bolt release, which is this piece here on the bottom. We'll go into further detail a little bit later. We'll press the bottom portion of the bolt catch bolt release and pull the charging handle back until we hear and feel a click. We can then release the charging handle, which if you'll notice will stay in place. It's no longer under spring tension because the bolt carrier assembly is being held by the bolt release. Can then press the charging handle forward to lock it into position. Now we can verify that there's no ammunition in the firearm. Again, make sure that there's no magazine in the mag well. We can visually examine to make sure there's no round in the chamber or in the loading port area. We'll then look away to break our sight picture or any mental image we'll have, and we'll do it again. Again, we'll look to make sure there's nothing in the mag well, nothing in the chamber, nothing in the loading port area. We can now verify that our firearm is empty and safe for us to proceed and provide the rest of the information to you. Unfortunately, most accidents occur during firearm cleaning, when people assure themselves that the firearm was empty and unloaded. We want to make sure that you stay safe. So whenever you work or maintain a firearm, make sure your work surface area has no ammunition in reach when you're doing this. This includes spare magazines, tactical gear, chest gear, belt pouches, whatever. Make sure that's all clear. And then verify and double verify that your firearm is clear of any ammunition. Let's get started. When you purchase a Huldra Mark IV rifle, it will come in a soft-sided tactical style case. The case has magazine pockets, an accessory pocket, as well as a zippered accessory pocket for various things that you might want to take with you to the range. The main compartment offers the protection for the rifle and also has carry handles and a shoulder strap. Inside the case you'll find your rifle as well as some other literature, which we'll cover first. If you can't find your owner's manual in the box, it's most likely in this zipper compartment right here. What you'll find in the case is your Huldra Mark IV operations manual, the youth handgun safety notice, which is information for you regarding handgun purchases, personal firearms record. Again, this is useful for you to maintain the documentation of your firearm, and as well as some promotional literature from the NRA. Your Huldra Mark IV operations manual contains vital information to the operation and function of your rifle. We recommend thoroughly reading the owner's manual and being familiar with its information before using your rifle. Information in here includes basic disassembly, operation, function, safety. Again, a lot of valuable information, including color photographs, to aid in the operation and disassembly of your rifle. In addition to eye and ear protection, whenever we're at the range or anytime we're handling a firearm, we always want to make sure we follow the 4 rules of firearm safety. Number 1, we always treat all firearms as if they are loaded all of the time. Always assume that the firearm is loaded. Number 2, keep your finger off of the trigger until the sights are on target and you are ready to fire. A great way to keep your finger off of the trigger is to simply extend your trigger finger outward above the trigger opening. So many people handle the firearm and immediately they pick it up and they put their finger on the trigger. This is a habit that unfortunately has caused more negligent discharges than any other safety rule violation. So we always want to make sure to keep our finger off of the trigger until the sights are on target and we're ready to fire. Rule number 3, never point your firearm at anything you are not willing to shoot. Whether we're at a range, whether we're handling a firearm at our home, we always want to make sure we never sweep the muzzle at anything we do not want to shoot. We always want to handle the firearm in a safe manner. For some users at home, that may be downward, upward carry. We don't want to be reckless with this. We always want to make sure that our muzzle safety awareness is key, and it's always pointed in a safe direction until we're ready to fire. And rule number 4, we always want to be sure of your target and what's beyond it. At a range, if you're not familiar with this facility, you want to make sure you inspect the backstop and what's beyond. Make sure you're familiar with the local range rules that you might be shooting at as far as certain berms you can and can't shoot at. Certain berms may be rated only for pistol ranges or pistol firing versus rifle ranges. So we want to make sure you're familiar with your target and what's beyond. If you're shooting outdoors, take special care to note what's beyond your intended target. In addition to the 4 firearm safety rules, we also recommend that you never be distracted when you're operating a firearm or supervising the operation of a firearm, such as with a child or maybe someone who's new to firearms. Cell phones and personal media players have no place on the range if they can cause distractions. While it may be important to have a cell phone on your person to report an emergency, we want to make sure that these technology devices do not distract our attention to the safe operation of shooting a firearm. Additionally, drugs, alcohol, and firearms never mix. Whenever we're operating a firearm or supervising the operation of a firearm, we never want to be under the influence or impaired by any drug or alcohol that could affect your judgment, your attention to detail, or your reaction to a situation. Now that we have the safety covered, we're going to go over the nomenclature of the parts of a Huldra Mark IV rifle. It should be noted that we have several models of Mark IV rifles. However, the nomenclature and operation of them is the same, unless we point out differences as noted. We'll start from the rear of the rifle and move our way forward. The first thing we have is an adjustable buttstock. The stock is adjustable for a different length of pull to compensate for different size shooters. How we adjust the buttstock is we compress this lever here at the bottom. With this lever compressed, we can move the stock forward or backward to different positions, and it locks in place with an audible click. Next, we have the receiver extension, commonly referred to as the buffer tube. This is the tube that the stock actually affixes to. We'll go over removing the buttstock in just a moment. Next, we have the castle nut, which attaches the receiver extension or buffer tube to the lower receiver group. You'll note all of our castle nuts are staked for proper tightness and to ensure that they do not loosen under use. We also have the upper receiver and the lower receiver, which we'll get into more detail in just a moment. On the top of the upper receiver, we have a standard Picatinny rail. This allows for the mounting of optics or iron sights. Forward of the upper receiver, we have the handguard. On some models, the handguard is secured with a delta ring, which is a spring compressed ring which holds tension on the handguards. Other models, such as our Tactical Elite or our XPRE 1, feature a quad rail or a monolithic upper receiver, which combines, in the case of the XPRE, the handguard and the upper receiver, all one piece of machined aluminum. In the case of the Tactical Elite, a free float quad rail is attached to the upper receiver. On our base model carbines, such as our 5.56 and 5.45, they come with M4 style handguards. In front of the handguard is the gas block, and inside of the gas block is the piston components, which we'll go into more detail in a moment. Forward of the gas block is the barrel, and at the end of the barrel is a threaded flash hider. The flash hider threading is industry standard 1/2 inch by 28 threads. We use a standard A2 style birdcage flash hider. Now we're going to review the nomenclature of the outer parts of the upper and lower receiver. Down from the rail, we have a brass deflector. This is designed to deflect ejecting brass away from the shooter. We also have the ejection port. This is the area that the rounds actually eject out of during operation. Just below the ejection port is a dust cover. This pivots and also snaps into place, closed, to protect dust and dirt from entering the ejection port and the bolt carrier assembly, and automatically opens when the rifle is cycled or functioning. Also on the upper receiver, we have the forward assist. The forward assist, which we'll get into more detail a little bit later once we take the upper receiver apart, engages the bolt carrier assembly, helping to assist it forward to ensure full battery is achieved. Moving to the lower receiver on the right side of the rifle, or the ejection port side of the rifle, this button is the magazine release. By pressing this button, the magazine can then be released from the mag well, which is located at the bottom of the lower receiver. Back from the mag release is the safety selector indicator. On the right side of the rifle, it is a notch that either points to the positions of safe or fire. On our Tactical Elite and X-Pre models, we have an ambidextrous safety which has levers on both sides. Moving down from the safety selector indicator is the trigger, trigger guard, and pistol grip. On our Tactical Elite and X-Pre models, our pistol grip is upgraded to the Ergo grip model. On the left side of the rifle, again, we have the universal rail. We also have the charging handle, which we'll get into more detail in a moment. Moving down, we have the bolt catch and bolt release. It is similarly shaped to a racket, and we'll go over the operation of that in just a moment. Backwards from that is the safety selector. Again, this is either going to be in the safe or fire position. Make sure that when we're not firing, the safety is always in the safe position. We have the trigger, pistol grip, and here you can actually see the other side of the magazine release. When we press the magazine release button, this bar extends outward, allowing the magazine to fall. Next, we're going to separate the upper receiver from the lower receiver. In order to do that, we need to access the takedown pins, or sometimes referred to as the pivot pins. There are two of them. There is a front takedown pin and a rear takedown pin. If you'll notice, on the left side of the firearm, the pin heads are smaller diameter than the right side. You'll notice that the takedown pin diameter on the right side are larger diameter than they are on the left. In order to separate the upper receiver from the lower receiver, we need to press the takedown pin on the left side of the rifle. You'll know this because it's the small diameter side of the pivot pin. To do this, we simply press the rear pivot pin on the small side till we hear and feel a click. We'll notice that we can no longer see the head of the pin flush with the side of the rifle. On the right side of the rifle, we can now see that the pivot pin is extending outward from the receiver. We can now take our fingers and grab onto this and pull until it stops. There is a detent inside the receiver preventing the pin from coming out all of the way. So there's no need to use excessive force, pliers, or any kind of tools. We can simply use this with just hand pressure until we feel a click and feel the pin stop. Once we have the pin extended, we can now pivot the lower receiver down and the upper receiver up. This is the first step to separating the upper receiver from the lower receiver. The two receivers are still connected by the front takedown pin. To separate this, we do the same operation. We press it from the left side to the right, and we simply pull out from the right side. Keep in mind, when you pull this pin all the way, the two halves can now separate. So be sure that we're still on our table so our lower receiver doesn't drop and hit the floor, the ground, etc. when we're separating our two halves. Now we have the two halves of the rifle separated. We have the complete lower receiver group and the complete upper receiver group.